If there be an l, as in jingle, tingle, tinkle, mingle, sprinkle, twinkle, there is implied a frequency or iteration of small acts, and the same frequency of acts, but less subtle by reason of the clearer vowel a, is indicated in jangle, tangle, spangle, mangle, wrangle, brangle, dangle, as also in mumble, grumble, jumble. But at the same time the close u implies something obscure or obtunded, and a congeries of consonants, mbl, denotes a confused kind of rolling or tumbling, as in ramble, scamble, scramble, wamble, amble. But in these there is something acute. In nimble, the acuteness of the vowel denotes celerity. In sparkle, sp denotes dissipation, or an acute crackling; k, a sudden interruption; l, a frequent iteration. And in like manner, in sprinkle, unless in may imply the subtlety of the dissipated gutules. Thick and thin differ in that the former ends with an obtuse consonant, and the latter with an acute. In like manner, in squeak, squeak, squeal, squall, brawl, rawl, yawl, spawl, screak, shriek, shrill, sharp, shrivel, wrinkle, crack, crash, clash, gnash, plash, crush, hush, hiss, fiss, whist, soft, jar, hurl, curl, whirl, buzz, bustle, spindle, dwindle, twine, twist, and in many more, we may observe the agreement of such sort of sounds with the thing signified. And this so frequently happens, that scarce any language which I know can be compared with ours; so that one monosyllable word, of which kind are almost all ours, emphatically expresses what in other languages can scarce be explained but by compounds, or decompounds, or sometimes a tedious circumlocution. We have many words borrowed from the Latin, but the greatest part of them were communicated by the intervention of the French, as grace, face, elegant, elegance, resemble. Some verbs which seem borrowed from the Latin are formed from the present tense, and some from the supines. From the present are formed spend, expend, expendo, conduce, conduso, despise, despicio, approve, approbo, conceive, concipio. From the supines, supplicate, supplico, demonstrate, demonstro, dispose, dispono, expatiate, expatior, suppress, supprimo, exempt, eximo. Nothing is more apparent than that Wallace goes too far in quest of originals. Many of these, which seem selected as immediate descendants from the Latin, are apparently French, as conceive, approve, expose, exempt. Some words purely French, not derived from the Latin, we have transferred into our language, as garden, garter, buckler, to advance, to cry, to plead, from the French jardin, jartier, bouslier, avancer, crier, plaider, though indeed even of these part is of Latin original. As to many words which we have in common with the Germans, it is doubtful whether the old Teutons borrowed them from the Latins, or the Latins from the Teutons, or both had them from some common original, as wine, venom, wind, ventus, went, veni, way, via, wall, vallum, wallow, volvo, wool, vellus, will, volo, worm, vermis, worth, virtus, wasp, vespa, de, dies, draw, traho, tame, domo, Greek dameo, yoke, jugum, Greek zugos, over, upper, super, Greek hyper, sum, Greek aimi, break, frango, fly, volo, blow, flow. I make no doubt but the Teutonic is more ancient than the Latin, and it is no less certain that the Latin, which borrowed a great number of words not only from the Greek, especially the Aeolic, but other neighboring languages, as the Oscan and others, which have long become obsolete, received not a few from the Teutonic. It is certain that the English, German, and other Teutonic languages retained some derived from the Greek, which the Latin has not, as axe, ox, mit, ford, ferd, daughter, toctor, mickle, mingle, moon, seer, or, grave, graph, to scrape, whole, from Greek asini, Greek meta, Greek porthmos, Greek thygator, Greek megalos, Greek mignio, Greek mene, Greek zeros, Greek grapho, Greek holos. Since they received these immediately from the Greeks, without the intervention of the Latin language, why may not other words be derived immediately from the same fountain, though they be likewise found among the Latins? Our ancestors were studious to form borrowed words, however long, into monosyllables, and not only cut off the formative terminations, but cropped the first syllable, especially in words beginning with a vowel, and rejected not only vowels in the middle, but likewise consonants of a weaker sound, retaining the stronger, which seemed the bones of words, or changing them for others of the same organ, in order that the sound might become the softer, but especially transposing their order, that they might the more readily be pronounced without the intermediate vowels. For example, in expendo, spend; exemplum, sample; excipio, scape; extraneous, strange; extractum, stretched; excrucio, to screw; exscorio, to scour; exscorio, to scourge; excortico, to scratch; and others beginning with x, as also emendo, to mend; episcopus, bishop; in Danish, bisp; epistola, epistle; hospitale, spittle; Hispania, Spain; historia, story. Many of these etymologies are doubtful, and some are evidently mistaken. The following are somewhat harder: Alexander, Sander; Elizabetha, Betty; Apis, B; Aper, bar; P passing into B as in bishop, and by cutting off A from the beginning, which is restored in the middle. But for the old bar or bear, we now say bore. As for lang, long; for bane, bane; for stain, stone; aprugna, brawn; P being changed into B, and A transposed, as in oper; and G changed into W, as in pignus, pawn; lege, law; Greek, alopex; fox, cutting off the beginning, and changing P into F, as in pellis; a fell; pullus; a foal; pater, father; pavor, fear; polio, file; pleo, impleo; fill, full; piscus, fish; and transposing O into the middle, which was taken from the beginning, apex, a piece; peak, pike; Zephyrus, fries; mustum, stum; defensio, fence; dispensator, spencer; asculto, escute, French; scout; exculpo, scrape, restoring L instead of R, and hence scrap; scrabble, scrawl; exculpo, scoop; exteritus, start; extonitus, attonitus, stand, stomachus, maw, offendo, find, obstipo, stop, audere, dare, cavere, where, whence aware, beware, wary, warn, warning. For the Latin V consonant formerly sounded like our W, and the modern sound of the V consonant was formerly that of the letter F, that is, the Aeolic digamma, which had the sound of Greek PH, and the modern sound of the letter F was that of the Greek PH, or PH. Ulsus, ulcere, ulcer, sore, and hence sorry, sorrow, sorrowful, ingenium, engine, gin, scalinas, leaning, unless you would rather derive it from Greek, clino, whence inclino, infundibulum, funnel, gagates, jet, projectum, to jet forth, a jetty, cuculus, a cowl. There are syncopes somewhat harder, from tempore, time, from nomine, name, domina, dame, as the French homme, femme, nom, from homine, fomina, nomine. Thus pagina, page, Greek proterion, pot, Greek kipella, cup, cantharus, can, tentorium, tent, precor, pray, preda, pray, specio, speculor, spy, plico, ply, implico, imply, replico, reply, complico, comply, sedis episcopalis, C. A vowel is also cut off in the middle, that the number of the syllables may be lessened, as amita, ant, spiritus, sprite, debitum, debt, dubito, doubt, comis, comitus, count, clericus, clerk, quietus, quit, quite, acquieto, to acquit, separo, to spare, stabilis, stable, stabulum, stable, palacium, palace, place, rabula, rail, rawl, rawl, brawl, rabble, brabble, quiseto, quest. As also a consonant, or at least one of a softer sound, or even a whole syllable, rotundus, round, fragilis, frail, securus, sure, regula, rule, tegula, tile, subtilus, subtle, nomen, noun, decanus, dean, computo, count, subitaneous, sudden, soon, superare, to soar, periculum, peril, mirabili, marvel, as magnus, main, dignor, dane, tingo, stain, tinctum, taint, pingo, paint, predare, reach. The contractions may seem harder where many of them meet, as Greek kyriakos, kirk, church, presbyter, priest, sacristanus, sexton, frango, fragi, break, breach, phagus, Greek phaga, beach, F changed into B, and G into CH, which are letters near akin, frigesco, freeze, frigesco, fresh, SC into SH, as above in bishop, fish, so in scapha, skiff, skip, and refrigesco, refresh, but viresco, fresh, phlebotomus, phlegm, bovina, beef, vitulina, veal, scutifer, squire, ponitentia, penance, sanctuarium, sanctuary, sentry, cassitio, chase, perquistio, purchase, anguilla, eel, insula, isle, isle, island, island, insuletta, islet, islet, ite, and more contractedly, ey, whence aunsi, ruli, Eli. Examinare, to scan, namely by rejecting from the beginning and end e and o according to the usual manner. The remainder, examine, which the Saxons, who did not use x, writ csamen, or scamen, is contracted into scan, as from dominus, don, nomine, noun, abomino, ban, and indeed apum examen. They turned into sciame, for which we say swarm, by inserting r to denote the murmuring. Thesaurus, store, sedile, stool, Greek hiatos, wet, pseudo, sweat, gaudium, gay, jocus, joy, succus, juice, catena, chain, caliga, calga, chose, French, hose, extinguo, stand, squench, quench, stint, forest, fourth, species, spice, recito, read, adjuvo, aid, Greek, aeon, avum, age, ever, flocus, lock, exerpo, scrape, scrabble, scrawl, extravagus, stray, straggle, collectum, clot, clutch, colligo, coil, recaligo, recoil, severo, swear, stridulus, shrill, procurator, proxy, pulso, to push, calamus, a quill, impetere, to impeach, augeo, oxy, wax, and venesco, venui, wane, syllabary, to spell, putius, pit, granum, corn, comprimo, cramp, crump, crumple, crinkle. Some may seem harsher, yet may not be rejected, for it at least appears that some of them are derived from proper names, and there are others whose etymology is acknowledged by everybody, as Alexander, Elic, Scander, Sander, Sandy, Sanny, Elizabetha, Elizabeth, Elizabeth, Betty, Bess, Margarita, Margaret, Margot, Meg, Peg, Maria, Mary, Mal, Paul, Malkin, Mawkin, Mawks, Matthias, Matha, Matthew, Martha, Matt, Pat, Gulielmus, Wilhelmus, Girolamo, Guillaume, William, Will, Bill, Wilkin, Wicken, Wicks, Weeks. Thus Cariophilus, Floss, Girofalo, Italian, Giroflee, Gillofer, French, gilliflower, which the vulgar call July flower, as if derived from the month July. Petrosilium, parsley, portulaca, purslane. Sidonium, quince. Sidoniatum, quidinly. Persicum, peach. Eruca, eruc, which they corrupt to earwig, as if it took its name from the ear. Annulus geminus, a gimel, or gimble ring, and thus the word gimble or jumble is transferred to other things thus interwoven. Quelque chose, kickshaws. Since the origin of these, and many others, however forced, is evident, it ought to appear no wonder to any one if the ancients have thus disfigured many, especially as they so much affected monosyllables, and to make the sound the softer, took this liberty of maiming, taking away, changing, transposing, and softening them. But while we derive these from the Latin, I do not mean to say that many of them did not immediately come to us from the Saxon, Danish, Dutch, and Teutonic languages, and other dialects, and some taken more lately from the French or Italians, or Spaniards. The same word, according to its different significations, often has a different origin, as to bear a burden, from fero, but to bear, whence birth, born, bairn, comes from pario, and a bear, at least if it be of Latin original, from fera. Thus perch, a fish, from perca, but perch, a measure, from pertica, and likewise to perch. To spell is from syllaba, but spell, an enchantment by which it is believed that the boundaries are so fixed in lands that none can pass them against the master's will, from expello, and spell, a messenger, from epistola, whence gospel, good spell, or God spell. Thus freeze, or freeze, from frigesco, but freeze, an architectonic word, from Zophorus, but frieze, for cloth, from Phrygia, or perhaps from frigesco, as being more fit than any other for keeping out the cold. There are many words among us, even monosyllables, compounded of two or more words, at least serving instead of compounds, and comprising the signification of more words than one; as, from scrip and roll comes scroll, from proud and dance, prance; from st of the verb stay, or stand, and out, is made stout; from stout and hardy, sturdy; from sp of spit or spew, and out, comes spout; from the same sp with the termination in is spin, and adding out, spin out; and from the same sp with it is spit, which only differs from spout in that it is smaller, and with less noise and force. But sputter is, because of the obscure u, something between spit and spout, and by reason of adding r it intimates a frequent iteration and noise, but obscurely confused, whereas spatter, on account of the sharper and clearer vowel a, intimates a more distinct poise, in which it chiefly differs from sputter. From the same sp and the termination arc comes spark, signifying a single emission of fire with a noise, namely sp, the emission, ar, the more acute noise, and k, the mute consonant, intimates its being suddenly terminated. But adding l is made the frequentative sparkle. The same sp, by adding r, that is, spr, implies a more lively impetus of diffusing or expanding itself, to which adding the termination ing, it becomes spring; its vigor spr imports; its sharpness the termination ing; and lastly in acute and tremulous, ending in the mute consonant g, denotes the sudden ending of any motion. That it is meant in its primary signification of a single, not a complicated, exhalitation. Hence we call spring whatever has an elastic force, as also a fountain of water, and thence the origin of any thing; and to spring, to germinate, and spring, one of the four seasons. From the same spr and out is formed sprout, and with the termination ig, sprig, of which the following, for the most part, is the difference: sprout, of a grosser sound, imports a fatter or grosser bud; sprig, of a slenderer sound, denotes a smaller shoot. In like manner, from str of the verb strive and out comes strout and strut; from the same str and the termination uggle is made struggle, and this gl imports, but without any great noise, by reason of the obscure sound of the vowel u. In like manner, from throw and roll is made troll, and almost in the same sense is trundle, from throw or thrust, and rundle. Thus graph or gruff is compounded of grave and rough, and trudge from tread or trot, and drudge. In these observations it is easy to discover great sagacity and great extravagance, an ability to do much defeated by the desire of doing more than enough. It may be remarked, 1. That Wallace's derivations are often so made, that by the same license any language may be deduced from any other. 2. That he makes no distinction between words immediately derived by us from the Latin, and those which, being copied from other languages, can therefore afford no example of the genius of the English language, or its laws of derivation. 3. That he derives from the Latin, often with great harshness and violence, words apparently Teutonic, and therefore, according to his own declaration, probably older than the tongue to which he refers them. 4. That some of his derivations are apparently erroneous. Syntax. The established practice of grammarians requires that I should here treat of the syntax, but our language has so little inflection, or variety of terminations, that its construction neither requires nor admits many rules. Wallace, therefore, has totally neglected it; and Johnson, whose desire of following the writers upon the learned languages made him think a syntax indispensably necessary, has published such petty observations as were better omitted. The verb, as in other languages, agrees with the nominative in number and person, as thou fliest from good, he runs to death. Our adjectives and pronouns are invariable. Of two substantives, the noun possessive is in the genitive, as his father's glory, the sun's heat. Verbs transitive require an oblique case, as he loves me, you fear him. All prepositions require an oblique case, as he gave this to me, he took this from me, he says this of me, he came with me. Prosody. It is common for those that deliver the grammar of modern languages to omit the prosody, so that of the Italians is neglected by Buonamati, that of the French by Desmarais, and that of the English by Wallace, Cooper, and even by Johnson, though a poet. But as the laws of metre are included in the idea of grammar, I have thought proper to insert them. Prosody comprises orthoepy, or the rules of pronunciation, and orthometry, or the laws of versification. Pronunciation is just when every letter has its proper sound, and every syllable has its proper accent, or, which in English versification is the same, its proper quantity. The sounds of the letters have been already explained, and rules for the accent or quantity are not easily to be given, being subject to innumerable exceptions. Such, however, as I have read or formed, I shall here propose. 1. Of dissyllables formed by affixing a termination, the former syllable is commonly accented, as childish, kingdom, actest, acted, toilsome, lover, scoffer, fairer, foremost, zealous, fullness, godly, meekly, artist. 2. Dissyllables formed by prefixing a syllable to the radical word have commonly the accent on the latter, as to beget, to beseem, to bestow. 3. Of dissyllables, which are at once nouns and verbs, the verb has commonly the accent on the latter, and the noun on the former syllable, as to descant, a descant, to cement, a cement, to contract, a contract. This rule has many exceptions. Though verbs seldom have their accent on the former, yet nouns often have it on the latter syllable, as delight, perfume. 4. All dissyllables ending in y, as cranny, in our, as labor, favor, in ow, as willow, wallow, except allow, in le as battle, Bible, in ish as banish, in ck as cambric, cassock, in ter as to batter, in age as courage, in en as fasten, in et as quiet, accent the former syllable. 5. Dissyllable nouns in er as canker, butter, have the accent on the former syllable. 6. Dissyllable verbs terminating in a consonant and e final, as comprise, escape, or having a diphthong in the last syllable, as appease, reveal, or ending in two consonants, as attend, have the accent on the latter syllable. 7. Dissyllable nouns having a diphthong in the latter syllable have commonly their accent on the latter syllable, as applause, except words in ain, certain, mountain. 8. Trisyllables, formed by adding a termination or prefixing a syllable, retain the accent of the radical word, as loveliness, tenderness, contemner, wagoner, physical, bespatter, commenting, commending, assurance. 9. Trisyllables ending in ous, as gracious, arduous, in al, as capital, in ion, as mention, accent the first. 10. Trisyllables ending in ce, ent, and ate, accent the first syllable, as countenance, continence, armament, imminent, elegant, propagate, except they be derived from words having the accent on the last, as connivance, acquaintance, or the middle syllable hath a vowel before two consonants, as promulgate. 11. Trisyllables ending in y, as entity, specify, liberty, victory, subsidy, commonly accent the first syllable. 12. Trisyllables in re or le accent the first syllable, as legible, theater, except disciple, and some words which have a position, as example, epistle. 13. Trisyllables in ude commonly accent the first syllable, as plenitude. 14. Trisyllables ending in ator or atour, as creator, or having in the middle syllable a diphthong, as endeavor, or a vowel before two consonants, as domestic, accent the middle syllable. 15. Trisyllables that have their accent on the last syllable are commonly French, as acquiesce, repartee, magazine, or words formed by prefixing one or two syllables to an acute syllable, as immature, overcharge. 16. Polysyllables, or words of more than three syllables, follow the accent of the words from which they are derived, as arrogating, continency, incontinently, commendable, communicableness. We should therefore say disputable, indisputable, rather than disputable, indisputable, and advertisement rather than advertisement. 17. Words in ion have the accent upon the antepenult, as salvation, perturbation, concoction. Words in atour or ator on the penult, as dedicator. 18. Words ending in le commonly have the accent on the first syllable, as amicable, unless the second syllable have a vowel before two consonants, as combustible. 19. Words ending in ous have the accents on the antepenult, as uxorious, voluptuous. 20. Words ending in ty have their accent on the antepenult, as pusillanimity, activity. These rules are not advanced as complete or infallible, but proposed as useful. Almost every rule of every language has its exceptions, and in English, as in other tongues, much must be learned by example and authority. Perhaps more and better rules may be given that have escaped my observation. Versification is the arrangement of a certain number of syllables according to certain laws. The feet of our verses are either iambic, as aloft, create, or trochaic, as holy, lofty. Our iambic measure comprises verses of 4 syllables. Most good, most fair, or things as rare, to call you's lost. For all the cost words can bestow, so poorly show upon your praise, that all the ways sense hath come short. Drayton. With ravished ears the monarch hears. Dryden. Of 6. This while we are abroad, shall we not touch our lyre? Shall we not sing an ode? Or shall that holy fire, in us that strongly glowed, in this cold air expire? Though in the utmost peak, a while we do remain, amongst the mountains bleak, exposed to sleet and rain, no sport our hours shall break, to exercise our vein. What though bright Phoebus' beams refresh the southern ground, and though the princely Thames with beauteous nymphs abound, and by old Camber's streams be many wonders found? Yet many rivers clear here glide in silver swaths, and what of all most dear, Buxton's delicious baths, strong ale and noble cheer, t'assuage bream winter's scathes. In places far or near, or famous or obscure, where wholesome is the air, or where the most impure, all times and everywhere, the muse is still in Ur. Drayton. Of 8, which is the usual measure for short poems. And may at last my weary age find out the peaceful hermitage, the hairy gown and mossy cell, where I may sit and nightly spell of every star the sky doth shew, and every herb that sips the dew. Milton. Of 10, which is the common measure of heroic and tragic poetry. Full in the midst of this created space, betwixt heaven and earth and skies, there stands a place confining on all three, with triple bound, whence all things, though remote, are viewed around, and thither bring their undulating sound. The palace of loud fame, her seat of power, placed on the summit of a lofty tower. 1,000 winding entries, long and wide, receive of fresh reports a flowing tide. 1,000 crannies in the walls are made, nor gate nor bars exclude the busy trade. 'Tis built of brass, the better to diffuse the spreading sounds, and multiply the news. Where echoes in repeated echoes play, a mart forever full, and open night and day. Nor silence is within, nor voice express, but a deaf noise of sounds that never cease, confused and chiding, like the hollow roar of tides, receding from the insulted shore, or like the broken thunder heard from far, when Jove to distance drives the rolling war. The courts are filled with a tumultuous din of crowds, or issuing forth or entering in. A thoroughfare of news, where some devise things never heard, some mingle truth with lies. The troubled air with empty sounds they beat, intent to hear, and eager to repeat. Dryden. In all these measures the accents are to be placed on even syllables, and every line considered by itself is more harmonious, as this rule is more strictly observed. The variations necessary to pleasure belong to the art of poetry, not the rules of grammar. Our trochaic measures are of 3 syllables. Here we may think and pray before death stops our breath. Other joys are but toys. Walton's Angler. Of 5. In the days of old, stories plainly told, lovers felt annoy. Old Ballad. Of 7. Fairest piece of well-formed earth, urge not thus your haughty birth. Waller. In these measures the accent is to be placed on the odd syllables. These are the measures which are now in use, and above the rest those of 7, 8, and 10 syllables. Our ancient poets wrote verses sometimes of 12 syllables, as Drayton's Polyolbion. Of all the Cambrian shires their heads that bear so high, and farthest survey their soils with an ambitious eye, Mervinia for her hills, as for their matchless crowds, the nearest that are said to kiss the wandering clouds, a special audience craves, offended with the throng, that she of all the rest neglected was so long, alleging for herself, when through the Saxons' pride, the godlike race of Brute to Severn's setting side were cruelly enforced, her mountains did relieve those whom devouring war else everywhere did grieve. And when all Wales beside, by fortune or by might, unto her ancient foe resigned her ancient right, a constant maiden still she only did remain, the last her genuine laws which stoutly did retain. And as each one is praised for her peculiar things, so only she is rich in mountains, meres, and springs, and holds herself as great in her superfluous waste, as others by their towns and fruitful tillage graced. And of 14, as Chapman's Homer. And as the mind of such a man that hath a long way gone, and either knoweth not his way, or else would let alone, his purposed journey is distract. The measures of 12 and 14 syllables were often mingled by our old poets, sometimes in alternate lines, and sometimes in alternate couplets. The verse of 12 syllables, called an alexandrine, is now only used to diversify heroic lines. Walker was smooth, but Dryden taught to join the varying verse, the full resounding line, the long majestic march, and energy divine. Pope. The pause in the alexandrine must be at the 6th syllable. The verse of 14 syllables is now broken into a soft lyric measure of verses, consisting alternately of 8 syllables and 6. She to receive thy radiant name selects a whiter space. Fenton. When all shall praise and every lay devote a wreath to thee, that day, for come it will, that day shall I lament to see. Lewis to Pope. Beneath this tomb an infant lies to earth whose body lent, hereafter shall more glorious rise, but not more innocent. When the archangel's trump shall blow, and souls to bodies join, what crowds shall wish their lives below had been as short as thine? Wesley. We have another measure very quick and lively, and therefore much used in songs, which may be called the anapestic, in which the accent rests upon every 3rd syllable. May I govern my passions with absolute sway, and grow wiser and better as life wears away. Dr. Pope. In this measure, a syllable is often retrenched from the first foot, as Diogenes surly and proud. Dr. Pope. When present we love, and when absent agree, I think not of Iris, nor Iris of me. Dryden. These measures are varied by many combinations, and sometimes by double endings, either with or without rhyme, as in the heroic measure. 'Tis the divinity that stirs within us, 'tis heaven itself that points out an hereafter, and intimates eternity to man. Addison. So in that of 8 syllables, they neither added nor confounded, they neither wanted nor abounded. Prior. In that of 7, for resistance I could fear none, but with 20 ships had done what thou, brave and happy Vernon, hast achieved with 6 alone. Glover. In that of 6, 'twas when the seas were roaring with hollow blasts of wind, a damsel lay deploring, all on a rock reclined. Gay. In the Anapestic, when terrible tempests assail us, and mountainous billows affright, nor power nor wealth can avail us, but skilful industry steers right. Ballad. To these measures and their laws may be reduced every species of English verse. Our versification admits of few licenses, except a synalepa, or elision of e in the before a vowel, as the eternal, and more rarely of o in to, as to except, and a syneresis by which 2 short vowels coalesce into 1 syllable, as question, special, or a word is contracted by the expulsion of a short vowel before a liquid, as avarice, temperance. Thus have I collected rules and examples by which the English language may be learned, if the reader be already acquainted with grammatical terms, or taught by a master to those that are more ignorant. To have written a grammar for such as are not yet initiated in the schools would have been tedious, and perhaps at last ineffectual.